All right, let's start with tonight's webinar, which is topic of our webinar, which is before you buy crypto in your SMSF, the 7 mistakes that could cost you thousands. And of course, we will cover much more than just 7 mistakes. I will start with my presentation, and we will discuss self-managed superannuation funds and what's happening and what mistakes that people are having, what the ATO is addressing at the moment, and what the budget meant for the self-managed superannuation funds. And then we continue with Bisha's presentation, which is going to be very informative as well. So please stay till the end, and you will get some prize if you stay to the end. So let's go. So a little bit about myself. I know I have a lot of my clients on the call, but at the same time, I would like to introduce myself to all the new people who are on the call, who just saw our webinar and joined and don't have any idea who I am. So I'm an SMSF specialist. I've been doing SMSFs for the last 22 years. And I could say that I know everything about self-managed superannuation funds. I've won multiple awards, industry awards, and I'm very well recognized in the industry as a SMSF specialist. Easy Super, I started Easy Super 12 years ago, and we do everything SMSF. So we set up SMSFs, we do accounting, tax, administration, audit, and also technical support. In regards to the topic of tonight's webinar, we are big on cryptocurrency. I started personally my crypto journey in 2016, and this is when we started helping people who have superannuation and who wanted to invest their superannuation in cryptocurrency. We started helping them in 2016. So we've got a lot of experience, and we went through a few cycles already. And I could say that we probably one of the most experienced companies in Australia supporting people who invest in their superannuation in cryptocurrency. All right, disclaimer. Of course, I have to start with a disclaimer that information provided during tonight's webinar is a general information only. It's not a financial advice because we didn't consider your personal circumstances, objectives, and needs. All right, a little bit of statistics. So for you to understand where cryptocurrency is sitting in SMSFs. So we have 1.07 trillion total SMSF assets in Australia. It's a massive, massive number if you think about it. But cryptocurrency is still only 0.6% of total SMSF assets, which is very tiny amount compared to the total 1.07 trillion. But it is growing. It's growing rapidly. And I know that in the last 2 years, the cryptocurrency was the #1 reason why people set up SMSFs. 661,000 SMSFs in Australia and 109 million. Obviously, this was in 2019. 3.2 billion was in 2025. We all know that now the number would be very different, but nevertheless, it's just showing the growth, massive growth in especially in the last, I would say, probably 4 or 5 years. The growth is amazing. When SMSF has to, let's go straight to the juice. So when SMSF has to pay tax on crypto, first of all, you have to understand that SMSF is compliant under the income tax legislation in Australia, and the SMSF has to pay tax whenever, like you have to pay tax in any other entity. The difference only is amount of tax you have to pay in SMSF compared to any other entities in Australia. So when do you have to pay tax? You have to pay tax when you sell crypto, when you swap crypto, when you receive airdrops, when you receive interest, rewards, coin sacrifice, crypto mining income. This is where you mine your crypto in SMSF, which is possible. lending, liquidity pools, and gas fees. All these reasons, this is when you have to pay tax in a self-managed superannuation fund. There are a lot of gray areas in crypto taxation, but it's not only in SMSF again, because the income tax is the one which runs the, or this is how you pay tax, depending on the income tax act. So, and this is when there are a lot of gray areas, like I said, not only in the SMSF area, but in all other. It will cover all other entities as well. So we do have a lot of gray areas. Personal crypto ownership versus SMSF. Okay, let's talk about SMSF compared SMSF and tax you pay in SMSF compared to tax you pay in your personal name. So when you invest in cryptocurrency in your personal name and you hold it for less than 12 months, you're paying up to 47% tax, depending obviously on your marginal rate. And it's income tax on any ordinary income, say, for example, rewards, when you do when you receive the airdrops, or when you receive some crypto rewards, or when you stake your crypto, it's called the ordinary income which you receive, and you pay up to 47% tax. The capital gain tax, if you hold the asset for less than 12 months, you're still paying the same capital gain tax now, if you invest in your personal name. So there is no capital gain discount since the budget. In SMSF, nothing changed. So the budget, 2026 budget, didn't change how the taxation works for SMSF. So in SMSF, maximum tax you pay is 15%. The capital gain tax, if you hold your asset, if you hold your crypto for more than 12 months, you pay 10% tax. You're still getting your 33.33% discount on a capital gain tax. Like I said, nothing changed. And after the SMSF moves into pension phase, the tax becomes zero. There is a limit to it, 2.1 million per person. But this is how much tax you pay. We do have a new Division 296 tax. However, it's only applicable for people who have the balances over $3 million in superannuation system. And even with this additional 15% tax, I could tell you that modeling has been done that still SMSF, it's the most tax concessional environment in Australia. So it can't get any better in regards to the tax, minimizing your tax. It can't get any better than in the self-managed superannuation funds. In terms of the asset protection, it's important to understand as well that SMSF assets, they're protected. If someone goes bankrupt, for example, the creditors cannot go after the superannuation assets. That's important to understand. And with estate planning, so SMSF has a lot of flexibility in regards to where you want your superannuation to go after you pass away, and who you want your superannuation to be received after you pass away as well. So as an example, if, for example, you make 500,000 capital gain tax in your personal name, so you will be paying a massive tax, 185,000, say if it's in a personal name again, but in SMSF, potentially you're paying zero again. There are some limits how much you can put in this zero tax environment. And also there is Division 296 tax if your balance exceeds $3 million. However, we're still looking at a very good tax saving strategy for people who are under this 2.1 million or 3 million. Compliance for crypto in SMSF. So the SMSFs, they're run by CISACT, and there are 5, I would say, most important CISACT sections. Sole purpose CSAC sections which people have to understand. Sole purpose test, this is CSAC section 62. This is that the only purpose of superannuation is to provide the benefits for you in retirement. So this is number one. This is number one section which a lot of people don't understand. It means when you're thinking about investing, especially in the risky assets such as a cryptocurrency, you have to understand it's not gambling, and you have to understand that there are a lot of projects out there, crypto projects out there, which is almost gambling. So we all know that there are like 50 million different coins out there, and perhaps it's not a good idea to invest your superannuation into some of those coins or most of those coins, because this could be too risky and it will not satisfy the sole purpose test. Related party acquisition rules, again, it is there are strict rules about like what SMSF can acquire from the related party, which type of assets, and cryptocurrency is not included in the asset class which could be acquired from the related party. So it means your SMSF cannot buy a cryptocurrency from yourself. You have to sell this cryptocurrency which you own personally, and then SMSF can buy cryptocurrency from the third party, but not from yourself. Financial assistance prohibition, this is a very big one in the superannuation space, that your SMSF cannot provide financial assistance to yourself. Investment strategy requirements. Investment strategy is a financial product, so with investment strategy requirements, the auditors are very strict and actually getting stricter because, again, ATO is getting stricter. The investment strategy has to reflect your SMSF's circumstances, objectives, liquidity, cash flow, asset classes, consider insurances, diversification. So it's very important to have the right investment strategy in place, and it is a requirement to have an investment strategy in place for SMSF. And record keeping obligations. Again, this is a legislative requirement to keep your records. So it means you do have to have a good records for your cryptocurrency if you want to invest in cryptocurrency. ATO compliance expectations for crypto. Obviously, even crypto is a very, very small percentage of the total superannuation assets or SMSF assets. ATO is started looking at the cryptocurrency in SMSFs, and we have not had a lot of guidance in the, I would say, past 18 months. However, we know that the auditors, they're asking and they're becoming much and much stricter about proof of ownership at 30th of June. So obviously, your SMSF has to own the assets and prove that SMSF owns these assets. So you have to have a proof that the assets, that this cryptocurrency you are buying is owned by SMSF. Proof of existence, this is the second thing, because with a lot of, say, for example, cold wallets or exchanges which are not Australian exchanges which, say, for example, which are overseas, sometimes you can have a difficulty to prove that these assets, they do exist and they do belong to the superannuation fund, because there is a question of, say, for example, if you use exchange and there is a question of custodianship, who owns the asset? Do you own the asset, or your SMSF owns the asset, or exchange owns the asset, for example? Record keeping for all the years, so it's very important. You have all your records from the beginning, from inception. And this is, again, if you use the wrong exchange or broker, you might experience difficulty because sometimes the exchanges or providers, they don't have the full history of the transactions. And if you don't have full history of transactions, there are two things which could happen. First, it's very difficult to reconcile your cryptocurrency if you don't have a history from inception. And the second, that auditor will not have a proof. And again, it means that auditor will qualify the audit report and will report your SMSF to the ATO. Valuation at 30th of June. This is very important for every asset in SMSF because it has to have the valuation at 30th of June. And again, if you use the wrong provider for your cryptocurrency, you might get, like difficulty valuing certain assets or certain coins. Or if you invest in cryptocurrency coins or projects which are very small and hard to find valuation, again, you will find it difficult to satisfy the auditor. Security and access, this is a very big and became very big, I think, in the last 12 months. The auditors are asking, can you please provide what security you have in place for your cryptocurrency? Say, for example, if you use the cold wallet, so where is it stored? What security do you have in place? So you have to document all this information. Access is very important, again, because how can you prove that you have access? Excuse me. How can you prove that you have access to the particular coins in a particular wallet, for example? Yes, you might provide us with the address for this wallet, but also you'll need to prove that you do have access to this wallet as well, which again is different if you use in the exchanges or stock brokers, for example, like Stormrake, because the access is not an issue, obviously. The same like security should not be an issue as well, because it will become Stormrake's issue. Why crypto creates audit risk? Let's talk about like what the auditors want actually from the SMSFs, or what do they want to see when they audit cryptocurrency in SMSFs. They want a confirmation of existence and ownership, and it has to be a very clear and easy to check for the auditors. Imagine if you have different wallets and different exchanges, and especially multiple wallets, exchanges, and brokers, and the auditor has to verify your balance and like check all these wallet addresses, check all your screenshots you provided, check that report from every single broker and exchange is what they want and it's compliant with Australian legislation. So that could become complicated, and it could become an expensive exercise as well, because obviously the auditors will charge you more. The accountants like myself, we will charge you more because it's a lot of manual work and proof we need to provide to the auditor. Exchanges, assets sit outside regulated custodians. Who owns and controls? This is what I'm saying this is what I meant when I said that who owns the assets. So is it the SMSF who is the owner, or is it the exchange who is the owner? So with exchanges and brokers, you have to be very careful, because in Australia, from 1st of July 2026, the exchanges and brokers, they have to have their financial license AFSL, or they have to apply for the financial license. And what it means that exchanges and brokers who are in Australia, they are regulated now. It means, and Bishop probably can tell more about what it means from their perspective, but it means they have the very strict procedures and controls in place, because otherwise they won't get the financial license, AFSL. If you use the exchange or broker, which is outside of Australia, this is where you have to ask a question. Do they have these systems and controls in place? I don't know. They might and they might not. So I know that a couple of exchanges, they actually left Australia because they didn't want to obtain their a license. And Bishop probably can, answer any questions on this topic as well. But
I love answering questions around licensing and compliance, Natalia. It's my favorite topic.
oh yes, it's very exciting yeah, it's very exciting. But you know what? It is a good thing for Australians because if you have someone who is in Australia, registered in Australia, and operates in Australia, and again, they have to have AFSL or they have to apply by 1st of July 2026, they supposed to apply for AFSL. Of course, they have until end of this financial year, right, Bishop, to get it.
Yeah,
But
we've actually had an extension on the no action order
okay,
on as of September 30th is 2027 is when the
okay,
application needs to be in progress. I'm very pleased to
yes.
say that ours has been submitted and now we wait for our ASIC overlords to be able to come back to us with some questions and then wait to go through that process. So we're underway.
Excellent. Yeah, excellent. So this is very important, guys. So you please check, where your exchange or broker is located if you're thinking of using someone overseas. Cold wallets, ownership controlled by private keys. Who owns and controls? So if we have two members in SMSF, and this is what the auditors are asking, if we have two members of SMSF, and one member is driving the investment in cryptocurrency, so do they control the cryptocurrency and private keys? What about the second member? Do they know what's going on? Do they know where the keys are stored? And do they know how to access the cryptocurrency, how to access the cold wallet in case if something goes wrong with the first member? So these are the questions which auditors started asking. And this is important if you think about it as well. So records might not be available for exchanges or wallets. This is where, again, we know the examples of the exchanges which don't provide the proper reports, for example, for the full financial year. Or if you try to download the transactions, you can only go back, say, 6 months or even less than 6 months. So this is important to have the records from the inception, from the start. So again, just use someone reputable, use someone who does have all the reports for you, all the, like transaction records, all the year-end reports, everything. Reconciliation challenge, multiple exchanges and wallets. This is where I have to explain a little bit about how the accountants work with cryptocurrency in SMSFs and why it is a challenge. We do have two providers, software providers on the market, which help us with SMSFs and processing SMSFs and accounting for SMSFs. However, none of these providers really done a lot of work in terms of crypto reconciliation. A lot of crypto reconciliation has to be done manually, or we need to use external software which reconciles all these multiple exchanges, brokers, and wallets. It is a lot of manual work and extra costs. This is why it is a challenge for accountants to even reconcile your cryptocurrency. That's important. So why would you complicate things? Why do you need to complicate things? Why would you wouldn't go just to one provider, pick a good one, go to the good one, pick Stormrake, and just, get everything from them. I'm just an example, you know what I mean? It doesn't make sense to jump from one to another, especially when people say to me, oh, but the fees is like $5 difference or something like it's ridiculous, but then they have to pay more in accounting fees and audit fees. So just think about why. Ask yourself, why do you use multiple exchanges and wallets and providers? Valuation differs across platforms and exchanges. This is the thing we know. For example, in accounting software, I know that they use the 5 different exchanges, and they just use the average of 5 different exchanges at 30th of June. So, but if you have a smaller coin, or if you have a smaller investment in a smaller project, crypto project, you will be struggling finding valuation. So it means you will fail the audit, that's for sure. Okay, so say 7 mistakes that will cost you potentially 1,000. This is very important. So number 1, and we still see it over and over again, using personal bank account, exchange account, wallet for SMSF crypto. So SMSF must keep all its assets separate from the personal assets. It includes bank account, it includes a crypto exchange, it includes a wallet. It means you have to have a separate bank account, separate exchange, and separate wallet for your SMSF. When I say bank account, one of the things, one of the examples what people did last year was that sometimes the banks will block your transaction into the crypto exchange. And what people used to do, they used to transfer the money from the SMSF bank account to the personal bank account, and then they would transfer it to the exchange. So there is a problem here, because you have this personal bank account in the middle, and it is actually the breach, because how can you explain that you're transferring money from your SMSF bank account to the personal bank account? So instead of doing that, you just have to find a bank which will not block your transactions, and we set up the bank account which will not block your transactions into the crypto exchanges or crypto brokers. This is a solution for this problem. I know that a lot of banks they do, but there are banks which don't. And you just have to find the right provider who can set it up for you. Mixing SMSF and personal coins. This is still an issue, and again, we've been talking about it for last, I think, 5 years. But people still mix SMSF and personal coins in the wallets, just because sometimes they make mistakes. Sometimes they just most times it's just because people make mistakes. They transfer it by accident into the wrong wallet, and then obviously it's breach. First thing, it's a breach. The second thing, it's very hard to reconcile, so it costs people, or will cost people, additional fees in accounting fees or audit fees. Transferring personal crypto into SMSF, again, like I said before, if you want to sell your personal cryptocurrency, you have to sell it on the market, and then your SMSF has to buy it from the third party using the broker or exchange. You cannot sell your personal crypto to your SMSF. Using exchange broker with no proper reporting, I've mentioned it before. Not lodging SMSF tax return for a few years. This is again, this is one of the big one I think I've seen. People forget to lodge, or they just postpone, and then they come to us and it's 2-3 years, and we have to reconcile it backwards. We have to go back and reconcile cryptocurrency. And if you have cold wallets, it's quite complicated to reconcile it, unless again we use additional software and etc. But with the auditor, you might get in trouble because you don't have a screenshots at 30th of June, say 2024, and the auditor finds it difficult to to reconcile it backwards. Adopting speculative concentrated risky strategy. This is where people invest in different crypto projects without thinking that, again, and reminding themselves, Section 62 of CSAC, the sole purpose test, It is for your retirement. The superannuation, it's not a Russian roulette. It's not a gambling place. It's basically for your retirement. So just invest your superannuation conservatively. Don't get excited about project or small coin which potentially could do 100x. Just think about it. If you do 2x, it's good enough. Using margin trading or futures with borrowing against cryptocurrency. Yeah, SMSFs are not allowed to borrow unless it's a special borrowing. So there is no margin trading is allowed in SMSF or futures where there is a lending attached to it. So again, we do get inquiries about that one. No, you cannot do it. So no leverage. All right, let's talk about SMSFs and what Easy Super, how Easy Super can assist you. We do have a special for tonight. Usually we charge $3,000 to set up SMSF. Everything is done for you, establishment, registration, compliance. We set up a special bank account, like I mentioned, which you can use to transfer money into the exchanges and brokers. And we do assist you with the rollovers. And we also include the SMSF Power Masterclass. This is a 2-hour online class where I educate you about everything you need to know about self-managed superannuation funds, how to manage your SMSF, how to stay compliant. We go much deeper than tonight into the compliance and cryptocurrency in SMSFs. But again, this is only available for our clients. I don't do it outside of my clients, so I don't sell it or whatever, because this is my PI. It's 22 years of doing SMSFs, and people ask me all the questions under the sun. So I just put it in masterclass, and I just provide this information for my clients only. So this is very valuable. I just, I don't even like how to put a number on it, but it's very important. Every year, annual fees, it's around 2,500 and 3,500, because crypto in SMSF, like I mentioned, it does require a little bit more work, sometimes a lot more work. And this is why the fee is between 2,500 and 3,500. Obviously, it depends on the complexity of the fund. And it includes administration, accounting, tax, audit, education, and unlimited technical support. And what you get, what's the difference between us and other providers, I guess? First of all, we are the SMSF specialists, and we do SMSFs only. It's like a hard specialist and GP. This is a comparison between us and the general accountants. You still get this boutique service. It's not like administrator where you don't have anyone on the phone. You have to upload all the online, and then you have to chase them, etc., etc. So you get access to SMSF specialists. You get unlimited technical support. You get a lot of education. We do send SMSF power tips every week only to our clients. We do have internal webinars for our clients only. And we do have, we also hold this SMSF Power Masterclass, and we send all the updates, legislation updates, industry updates to our clients as well. So you do get more than just administration and compliance. We also work with the auditor in regards to your SMSF. And if there is any issue and if we can fix it, unfortunately, I cannot fix everything. I can find a solution and resolution for it, but I cannot fix the things which been done incorrectly. However, like I said, we work with the auditor. We try to resolve issues before the auditor issues the contravention report. So, like I said, the SMSF establishment, it's a special for tonight. So if you want to set up SMSF in the next 30 days, you'll get a very good discount on the SMSF establishment package, all done for you in 2 weeks. In 2 weeks, all set up, including the rollover done. So in 2 weeks, you're ready to invest. All right, so your next step, if you don't have SMSF, you can book a session with myself, and we can talk about the next steps for you to set up SMSF. If you already have SMSF and want to move to Easy Super, again, you can scan and book a session with myself where I can do the health check of your SMSF, and we can talk about tax strategies and any other questions you might have. So that's the next. This is if you have SMSF or don't have SMSF, like I said, you just can book a call and find out how we can assist you. Thank you guys. Tonight is a very short presentation because I want to give opportunity Bisha to do his presentation as well. But you can follow us on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook. I also started my podcast a couple of months ago, so we already have 12 or 13 episodes. You can subscribe to our podcast as well, and we release the episodes every 2 weeks. So every 2 weeks you have a new episode about something on a new topic, and I share a lot of information there as well. So, but this is it for me for tonight. So let me just go back. So what I will do, I will allow Bishop to share his screen.
Thanks,
and
Natalia.
Continue the presentation, and then we can answer any questions people might have.
Sounds good. I've just sent you the request to be able to share my screens. In the meantime, guys, whilst Natalia is giving me the powers to share screens, I'd love for you guys to ask me as much questions as you possibly can throughout the duration of the webinar. There is no question that I would deem silly. As far as I can tell as well, we are the only ones that can see the questions. Is that correct, Natalia? That's the questions aren't public. Is that right? As far as I can tell. So, if you guys do have questions for me as I go throughout the course of the presentation, by all means, please ask them. If they're more tax related, I will definitely defer towards Natalia because that and SMSF compliance, that's definitely her wheelhouse. I would never take that away from her. But if it may be related towards markets, executions, macro market, macro cycle, macro environment, that's where I can certainly be of help and service to you all. Now I'm just going to quickly try to share my screens once again. Yes, I can see that. Beautiful. All right, beautiful, beautiful. I just want to make sure that I'm in the right place. Thank you, Natalia. I can see that's come through with the powers. Okay, give me a second, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, here we go. All right, now, ladies and gentlemen, can you see my screen at the moment? I just want to make sure that I'm getting a loud, clear, all good on your end as well, Natalia. You can see what I've got on my side. Beautiful. Thank you very much. So wealth, super, and digital assets. There's a lot of things that I do love in this world, and that is money, markets, and macro. There's a lot of things that I'm working on myself in terms of building my wealth, whether that be through Bitcoin or expanding my business into the United States. Great timing, by the way, on this webinar, Natalia. I'm actually off to the US of A for the next 5 months. Doesn't mean that I become inaccessible. It's just I'm working in a different time zone. I'll be based in Dallas, Texas for the foreseeable future, and then getting myself settled up. So building a future-proof SMSF strategy, what does this look like? So where Natalia and I have a very special relationship is that you guys will work extremely hard to get the SMSF established, at which stage there is a question that the investor will ask themselves, what now? Right? I've got the power, I've got the ability, I've got the assets, I've got the way to be able to, get access to those assets, I should say. I've got my investment strategy. What next? Well, it comes time to actually execute on your plan, because, if you've got a self-managed super fund and you've worked so hard to get one established and Natalia's efforts have gone towards creating one, well, let's make sure it's not gone to waste. So let's get stuck into it. Who I am, I won't go too much on about myself. I've spent over 10 years in brokerage and financial services, from everything from sales trading, algorithmic execution, OTC markets. I initially started off in foreign exchange and derivatives, moved across to digital assets and cryptocurrency and Bitcoin. It's something that is a space that is near and dear to my heart because that's what I've built predominantly a lot of my wealth in. And I know there's still a lot of opportunity for people to build their wealth in it. And so I just focus on anything to do with, market making, anything got to do with actual execution and settlements. That's my wheelhouse. That's what I've built my reputation upon. So 4 things that we're going to go through. Number 1, Q3 market outlook. We're towards the end of July already. We are closer to Christmas 2026 as we are to Christmas 2025. The time does certainly fly. And so we want to know what we're dealing with for the quarter ahead. The SMSF advantage, why a forward-looking super strategy is something that you should all be considering, especially with our beloved Prime Minister Anthony Albanese wanting to get his hands on your industry super, viewing it as a national strategic asset. But I'll probably let Natalia comment on that more, because if I get started, I certainly will not stop. Now, SMSF with Stormrake, we are your trusted partner in superannuation growth, particularly when it comes to the Bitcoin and digital asset side of thing. Here's what's really interesting, guys, right? And I'll leave it with you, and happy to answer questions towards the end and step 4, which is you can do a partial rollover and execute that to be your Bitcoin component of your portfolio. You can do a full rollover and buy, only a portion of your full rollover with Bitcoin. Just because you've got a SMSF does not mean you have to go all in on Bitcoin, right? So you can always have a measured approach. You can do all kinds of things that Natalia can probably provide you further guidance on. But if you are deciding to add Bitcoin to your self-managed super fund, we'll take care of that for you for sure. So let's get into the nitty gritty as to what we're anticipating for the next little while. And I'm going to absolutely rip through this, guys, because one of my most hated topics in the markets is talking about price action. Funnily enough, I am a broker, so I always end up talking about price action, but I want to give you guys a really clear insight as to what's happening and give some time for the Q&A. So what I'd like to actually share with you guys, and we'll happy to share with you the slide deck afterwards and share with you the Q3 outlook report in which these charts go into in great detail. But similar to the 2025 cycle top, where we had 3 marginal sets of higher highs, which is marked in June 2025, which is the middle component here, my apologies, as BC, UT, marginally higher high, and then the third one, UTAD, marked as the marginal higher high number 3. We are seeing a very, very similar structure forming at towards the bottom end of this bear market. So the same way we had actually formed the top, we are forming the bottom. We had a set of distribution towards the top where we were making marginal higher highs, but with no real conviction after each sell-off. Now, each sell-off that we've had since February of 2026 has been marginally lower, especially when we went to 60K in February 2026. We were at 58K in June of 2026. We may just get 55K if we're lucky in July, August of 2026, but that'll be a marginally lower low. And so we are now going from distribution, which occurred in Q4 of 2025, into accumulation, which is Q2, Q3 of 2026. So the great news is if you've already bought, the worst is behind us and the pain is almost done. If you are yet to buy, you are buying at the most attractive level we've seen in over 4 years, cycle to cycle. So the psychology of a market cycle. Now, this has been really interesting to see us going through a very unique cycle as opposed to the stock market, and AI and robotics investors are at the other end of the market cycle in terms of psychology. The AI and robotics investors, they've been absolutely euphoric, punching the air. Micron, we've had SpaceX, the largest IPO in history. Congratulations if you bought it though and made Elon Musk a trillionaire. You're now sitting 50% underwater from all-time highs. So don't chase and become exit liquidity. I could have told you that in advance. 5% float on IPO, 95% to become unlocked on IPO after the IPO date. I could have told you that could have ended the same way that it has over the last couple of months. But anyways, we are looking at being in the very, very late stages of a market cycle from a psychological perspective. Why? I've dealt with it and my brokers have dealt with it firsthand. I've had people panicking. I've had people getting on the phones and cussing me out left, right, and center. I've had people depressed. I've had people saying, that's it, I've had enough of this garbage, I'm out. And now we're in the really apathetic depression phase of the market cycle. And so it doesn't always necessarily repeat to perfection, but history often rhymes. And I was here in 2022. This is when I started, I bought into Stormrake at the end of the FTX collapse, the 2022 bear market. that nobody trusted the industry. There was so much fraud and corruption and disbelief and just absolute, the industry was despised because we had FTX, Celsius, Luna, Three Arrows Capital, Voyager, BlockFi. We had Celsius. We had so many major crypto financial institutions completely collapse. And so I went and leaned into that anger and that depression. And I said to the directors at the time, the owners of the business, the co-founders, Doug and Mike, they wanted to fold the brokerage business. I said, don't fold this business. This is something special, guys. We're going to build something really meaningful. We just have to get through the anger and depression phase of this market cycle. And that was 4 years ago when Bitcoin hit a low of $15,000. A question to the beloved audience. Would you like to buy Bitcoin at $15,000? Yes or no? Because I'll tell you, I would have loved to have bought more Bitcoin at that level. Unfortunately, I didn't know many of you, and not many of you were trading with me at that time. So I wasn't earning my brokerage commissions to go out and buy Bitcoin at 15,000. But nonetheless, we are at a very similar level now at 60,000. And I don't want the investors who are watching at home to treat Bitcoin at 60K the same way it was treated at 15,000, which, mind you, is a 3.2x return since then, cycle low to cycle low. Don't miss out on the discount of a lifetime. Now, why are we looking at this price structure? Let's actually explain what has happened at all-time highs, the rally high, and then where we are now. All-time high, depending on your data source, will be different, but ours is 126,200. That was October 6th. That was the top of the cycle peak, right? Bull market top confirmed. That was in hindsight, of course. The first rally high, $98,000 November 2025, it actually formed a lower high, the first sign of a bearish structure. The interim low was set at $60,000 March 2026, so another lower low. So that's the initial capitulation floor, buying there, very safe. We have seen a bear market rally. So keeping in mind that in June of 2022, we hit $15,000 for the first time, and we actually rallied to $23,000. So it was quite a substantial rally off the lows, but it actually confirmed another lower high. In our Q2 outlook, we said that the 65% probability of the bottom being in, but not guaranteed. We've had a marginally lower low since then, and our reading was 59,000 as of June 5th, 2026. And the current price is 65,600. To update it, it's closer to 63,000 as of the time of reading this. So we've had, Citadel Securities come out and say that they expect rate hikes. I'm going to call chicken. So we'll see what happens. But we're in this range, and this is the boring part of the market cycle, guys. This is the part where literally watching grass grow and paint dry is more exciting than looking at the Bitcoin price action. Buy when it's boring, sell when it's exciting. It's an old market adage, but it remains true for Bitcoin as it does for many other asset classes. So this is actually a really interesting chart, or table, I should say, and I want all of you to screenshot this, or at the very least, go ahead and download our Q3 Outlook, because it is a very, very attractive piece of data. Now, this is looking at Bitcoin drawdowns from local highs or even all-time highs. If you bought Bitcoin 10% or worse from a recent high, and then you have a chance, a year forward, a 72% win rate, 3 out of 4, ladies and gentlemen, with a 1-year median return of 86%. And your 3-year win rate goes towards nearly 100% with a median return of nearly 400%. The deeper the drawdown, the bigger the rallies, ladies and gentlemen. We are now at that 50% or worse territory. I don't actually anticipate it to get worse. Why? Simple reason. You have diminishing returns and diminishing drawdowns. The cycle that we've been through hasn't been all that bad. I mean, compare it to the previous cycle, which was 77%, and the cycle before that, which was 86%. The drawdowns are getting shallower, but so are our forward projections of where we anticipate this market to end up in 2028, 2029, at the top of the next cycle. We won't get the top absolutely to the dollar or within a percentage point, but we'll get it within 10 to 20%, which is similar to what we're anticipating now. Are we at the low? Are we at the bottom? Absolutely we are. But that is within a 10 to 20% range. We could get to 66, we can get to 54. I'm not saying it's absolutely the Schmiko bottom, but we are bloody forming a bottom, right? And so this is where you have to start looking at 50% drawdowns or worse. Now, this has been back tested across all Bitcoin data, inclusive of all the worst drawdowns that you've seen and probably haven't seen. 1 year out, you have an 85% win rate with a median return of 97%. So you buy Bitcoin now at a 50% drawdown. In 1 year forward, July 2027, you are having a probability of 85% to make a double or nothing, right? And the greatest part about it is that you're not even at the risk of losing everything, right? So this is Bitcoin. It is a $2 trillion asset class. The likelihood of it going to zero died back in 2014 when it was just an experiment. It's too big of an asset class now. Is there volatility? Yes. Can there be further corrections? Yes. But that doesn't mean anything. And the data is just even more and more attractive the deeper and the deeper the drawdowns that we get to. Would it be greedy to anticipate 70% or worse? Yes, it would. Because you can't have a maturing asset class with diminishing returns, but also give you massive volatility. The returns will diminish, and as will the drawdowns. So what are we looking at right now? Let's compare it to other asset classes. S&P 500, NASDAQ, the Magnificent Seven, right? An AI-led rally. In 7 concentrated tech stocks, $14 trillion market, ladies and gentlemen, right? Absolutely stupendous. The market cap of 7 technology stocks is 6 times larger than that of Bitcoin itself. High concentration risk. The price to earnings on the S&P 500 has never been more stretched than it has now. And the concentration of the top 10 companies make up over 40% of the index. Super concentrated. And look, don't get me wrong, I have had some good wins in this market, but it's really stretched, guys. Super concentrated valuations, highly stretched valuations. Doesn't mean that it can't go higher. There's a famous adage in the markets. I don't know who exactly penned it, but the market can stay irrational longer than you can stay solvent. And that is, I think it was maybe Paul Tudor Jones, but correct me if I got it wrong. The market right now, however, you have a chance to get Bitcoin at extremely discounted levels, down 38% for the year and down 51% from all-time highs, or you can buy into a really stretched, heavily concentrated index or into the category leaders such as Nvidia and Apple and Microsoft and Google, which assumes that the next 42 years are going to be as good as the last 4 or 5 years. That's a really silly assumption, ladies and gentlemen. So just, rein in your expectations. Doesn't mean that you can't buy AI tech stocks. Doesn't mean you don't buy equities. Doesn't mean that you can't buy S&P 500 or NASDAQ indexes. That's not what I'm saying. I can hear it now around the dinner table. Bishop said, don't buy equities, buy Bitcoin, right? That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that the data shows us that these assets are extremely stretched, extremely overvalued, and Bitcoin is deeply discounted. Whether you decide to do something with this information, I leave to you. Now, we need to keep in mind the rotation is being staged as we speak. Bitcoin is now at a point where it is ready to receive inflows. We've seen some marginally new inflows into the Bitcoin ETFs as well. Everything is, and what to watch has been outlined in great detail in our Q3 outlook. Where we are now, the exchange reserves are at 5-year lows, which means people are taking Bitcoin off exchanges, very positive supply. Long-term holder supply is starting to trend upwards, which means people who used to distribute are now accumulating, and institutional buyers are accumulating. This hasn't even taken into account, this framework hasn't even taken into account the Clarity Act, which, if it passes in America, is the equivalent of our digital asset framework bill here in Australia, which clearly regulates how Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies should be treated. The reason why, because Australia passed it on April 1st or 2nd of 2026, that didn't really mark the absolute low, and why it won't really mark the catalyst for a run to the upside, is because we're an irrelevant capital public market. We concentrate and command less than 1% of public capital market flow here in our local backyard, and Albo wants to take most of it. So Comrade Albo, if you're listening to this and you decided to tune into the webinar, Get your hands off people's industry super funds, please, kind sir. Leave it to them to choose how they wish to invest it. But the major capital markets in the world is America. That leads. So if they provide a clarity to the clarity bill and provide clarity to the markets, and especially the crypto markets, that could be the start of the next cycle up. And then that's when we can get towards a really big run to the upside. For those who want to confirm or wait for a bull market to kick off, you're waiting for a weekly close above 83K. That invalidates the range that we're currently in. It sets a new higher high, but the difference between buying 60K and 83K means you're giving up 20% of your bull run potential returns. If you want to wait for higher to buy because it gives you less volatility and more comfort, then go for it, but you have to be cognizant of what you're giving up. So key levels to watch, if you guys want to write this down or you want to take a screenshot, by all means, go for it. 83K is where we invalidate the bear market, but that doesn't mean that you buy at the bear market invalidation. $60,000 is where we are right now. This is the fight zone, right? If we give this up, our absolute Schmiko bottom target is 50 to 55,000 with a potential, you might not even get 48. You might get there for like 2, 3, 4 seconds, a minute if you're lucky, and then rerun, right? This is where the ETF launch had occurred, the mid 2024 low. There's a lot of concentrated supply there. I don't think we get there, but if we do, then it's not going to be there for long. 50 to 55K is our, back up the truck. Every single broker will be on the phones here, calling clients, you got to buy, and then you go from there. However, 60K is quite attractive because even if we get to 55, 54, 52, you're giving up what? You're picking up a 10% extra bit of Bitcoin and you're waiting for 83K to invalidate the bear market, meaning that you're somewhere around the low, but you're having to potentially wait for a 30% rise in the market in order to go out and confirm that the bear market is done. You're at that point where you're at the maximum risk to reward, which is, yes, there's a 10% downside risk if we fail to hold the 60K level. However, the 83K is just too far away for me to just say, look, let's just wait and watch and wait for the bear market to get invalidated. It's better off buying now closer to the lows as opposed to waiting for that final capitulation event. Now, that's my spiel as to why I should be buying Bitcoin from a macro, technical, and fundamental perspective. Let's actually get into what advantages a self-managed super fund provides. I'm not going to bore you with the details. Natalia did a bang-up job at being able to explain this to you guys all. But portfolio diversification, long-term growth, total transparency, and more importantly, borderless capital. So that if Albo decides to go full, comrade Albo and wants to dictate what you can and can't spend on, you can decide how you want to allocate your capital and where you can take your capital. But I'll leave that to you to make that decision with your spouse. So where do I come in? Well, I can give you dedicated broker support. You've got 4 lovely brokers here in Melbourne who take care of you. I've got 1 based in America, so I'd be surprised if Americans are tuning in at this time of night, but we do support 401ks in America. Deep market access because we're facing 20 different exchanges and 5 different private markets. That means that you get fixed price execution. So you can call us and request a quote, and whatever quote or price we give you, that's what we honor, as long as the order is accepted at then and there. We give you compliant custody. As Natalia mentioned, all brokers and exchanges in Australia who wish to continue operating have to apply for a financial services license, which we have. And then that comes with it its own myriad of client segregation requirements, liquidity requirements, surplus liquid funds requirements. And that's what we're already undertaking and have been compliant with for the last 7 years. But there'll be a institution and a regulator in ASIC that you can point to and say, are these people regulated? Seamless onboarding, because rather than having to navigate a faceless exchange, you're going to have one broker working with you the whole way through. And of course, my favorite word, compliance. Compliant reporting, ladies and gentlemen. You'll know exactly what your positions are. Every trade, deposit, and withdrawal reported and recorded for you. But here's the kicker. I do not report or record this on your behalf. As much as I love Natalia, she's a beautiful, very capable, intelligent woman. If she was to request a report on behalf of one of my clients or one of our mutual clients, I will send the downloaded end of financial year report to said client and say, Natalia is requesting this. Whether you wish to share with her is up to you, because we don't share information with the ATO, with accountants. There is no reporting requirement of that yet. If it changes, I'll be sure to let you know, but we're very specific. Only clients can access their client data. That's pretty much the beginning and end of it, ladies and gentlemen. And so process, simple as can be. You open an individual account, you submit your documentation for SMSF, usually just a trust deed. My team verifies and activates your account and you can start investing. Simple as that. So just give me a moment. That's it, ladies and gentlemen. If you have any questions, now is the time to do so. If you want to schedule a consultation with myself, please feel free to do so by recording the link on the side there. That would be lovely. Just scan it on your phone if you're not on your phone. If you want to speak to the team, just call the number there. You can go to the website and book a consultation with me through the website as well without having to scan the QR code, because I know some people are sensitive about that. And you can always email us with your suitable time and the team can put it in the calendar. So, ladies and gentlemen, is there any questions whatsoever that I'd love to be able to answer for you guys, and that way I can go through it? I'm happy to go and answer your questions. I'll just quickly leave it up there. Let me just see if there's any questions that have come through.
We do have questions, Bisha. Yeah, thank you.
Cool.
Thank you very much for your presentation.
My pleasure. I'll stop sharing.
Very
and
informative.
just go over to you guys.
Yeah, it was very informative. So very interesting, and I like how you call comrade.
That was
an
homage to my Russian friends.
I escaped communism 22 years ago. I did try hard, right, to escape it. Should I go to the moon? Anyway, so yes, ladies and gentlemen, now like this, ladies and gentlemen, I feel like it's back to social. It's going towards socialism here, and I can tell you from someone who lived in it, there is nothing good there. Zero good about socialism or communism. Don't trust. It's all, oh yeah, everyone gets, like they equal whatever assets, etc. Zero. That's it. Don't believe in it. All right. Anyway, so that's another story, but let's have a look. Let's have a look what's happening. All right. So we have a question. I think it's for you, Bisha. If you're investing in Bitcoin long term, should you still sell at the top and then wait and then rebuy at the bottom, or just hold forever and sell when you need the cash? That's a good one.
That is a very, very good question. And it depends on, what you're actually buying and which entity you're buying in and for what purpose it is. So generally speaking, the less that you can transact in your self-managed super fund. And now, guys, get this. You're getting this advice from a broker. I only earn commission when you trade, right? So generally speaking, I'd want you to trade as much as possible, right? That's how I make my living. I think that it's really wise to, if you're setting up a self-managed super fund, you're not going to be accessing it for 20 years, 10 years, 30 years, 15 years. You're not going to be accessing it for that much time. Could you potentially increase your Bitcoin stack, buying low, selling at the top, waiting for a correction? Yes, but you could miss it. You could cause yourself to become too involved with your retirement funds. Generally speaking, your self-managed super fund gives you a buy and hold structure. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't sell. You certainly can with us. But keep in mind that you actually walk away with a better CAGR buying and holding than you would just simply trying to pick every single top and bottom. And I wrote an article on this in one of my Substack articles. If you guys want to type in Sovereignty Brief, Bishop Cadera, that's where you can read my research. All free, no paywalls ever. That's my guarantee. And so what would end up happening is I modeled 3 portfolios, one who bought, one who sold and then missed the entries, and then those who hold, right? The buy, sell, hold is a really powerful way to look at it, because really when you're in a position, those are only the 3 things you can do. You've got cash, you've got capital to deploy, you're either going to buy an asset. If you're already in an asset, you can either choose to sell or hold it. Those are your 3 decisions. Oftentimes when you trigger all these tax implications, the psychology of market timing is very difficult to nail. If you have the right, say for example, a trading entity, a PTY LTD, and your taxes are going to be limited to 25 to 30%, and you've got the ability to use the proceeds of those profits. So let's say you nail the market cycle bottom as we have already indicated, and then you exit at the top, and you've just got this Porsche 911 with your name on it, and you just want to drive that thing. Well, sell the Bitcoin, buy the Porsche. But you're not going to be able to do so with a self managed super fund. So it really comes down to what is your vehicle and what purpose does that vehicle serve you? If it's your self managed super fund, it's usually servicing your retirement. You're not going to be buying a Porsche anytime soon. If you're buying it in your trading company or an investment vehicle, then yes, you can be a little bit more proactive. So I would say rather than providing blanket general advice, yes, you should be buying low and selling high. Generally speaking, that's how you make money in any market or asset class. Make sure the structure that you're in is aligned with your goals. And if you're using your Bitcoin to fund your lifestyle, then make sure that you're not trying to do that through your self-managed super fund, which you might not be able to enjoy for another 10, 20, 30 years. Do so in a vehicle that could allow you to buy that Porsche, take your wife to Tahiti, take your husband out to Bora Bora and live your good quality of life. But make sure it's in the right vehicle. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, this is very good because I think it's very hard to time the market. And to be honest, from my experience with like my clients, I haven't seen anyone who would be perfect with buying and selling yet. So I've seen the clients who made a lot of money because they were holding. And again, it's not a financial advice. I'm just saying what I've seen. But perfectly buy and sell, I have not seen it yet. I'm not saying it doesn't exist. I'm saying I have not seen it yet. Maybe because I don't have Bishop's SMSF. Maybe Bishop is the perfect,
I,
like buy
I,
and sell.
I would love to say that. And I've been in this space for nearly 12 years as an investor and trader and 10 years in crypto specifically. I don't get every cycle top and bottom correct. I usually get within 20%. When we lost that 90K, that initial 100K level, I was like, okay, I'll concede. We're in a bear market, but I didn't call it at the very top, and I'm certainly not going to get it at the very bottom. I'll get close, but that's a really big bet that you're making with your self-managed super fund. And again, as your broker, I benefit from you trading. I'm actually giving you advice not to overtrade because whilst it might benefit me, it might not benefit you.
Excellent. All right. What happens if your SMSF fails an audit? If there is a rectification process, I'd like to understand. Okay, in the SMSF, we have SMSF audit and we have SMSF audit report. SMSF audit report has two parts to it, Part A and Part B. Part A is just to confirm that existence and financials are correct and the assets, they do exist and they are recorded at the market price at the 30th of June. So the auditor can qualify Part A or Part B or Part A and B of audit report. If they qualify Part A of audit report, to be honest, it's not a big deal because this is what the auditor is saying. I cannot confirm 100% that this asset existed at 30th of June or that market value was correct at 30th of June. It doesn't mean that they didn't exist, or it doesn't mean that market value was incorrect. It's just that auditor have not received enough evidence to tick this box. That's it. So the ATO usually doesn't act on it. They usually just, and there is no rectification required because it's just the auditor's opinion. So Part B is different. Part B is qualified when there is a breach of CIS Act. If there is a breach of CIS Act, an auditor qualifies Part B of audit report and reports it to the ATO, then there is a red flag against your SMSF. Obviously, if you rectify it before the auditor reports to the ATO, then the auditor will tick the box that this issue has been rectified. And then it depends on the issue. ATO might conduct an audit of your SMSF or might not. So we do have a lot of experience with people coming from another accountants because usually we don't allow our SMSF to get, to breach the CIS Act because we educate our clients. But when clients come from other accountants and we deal with rectifications, we assist our clients. So we know what to do and how to rectify the contraventions of Part B of audit report. Again, Part A, ATO usually doesn't act. Part B, ATO could act, depends on the contravention type. When you say BTC is deeply discounted, what are you using to determine the fair value? Oh, that's a good one. What's a fair value? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of models out there. One of my favorite ones to use is Bitcoin realized price. That's something that I use quite extensively, which is essentially a measure of when Bitcoin last moved on chain and a measure of, and it's an assumption that there's a net profit and loss associated with it. There's a lot of great ones. There's the Mayer multiple, there's a stock to flow chart, but one of my favorite ones is realized price, and we're right at the floor, right? We are deeply discounted from what I believe future fair value would be, which is if we are to assume that the cycles remain intact. Now, I'll put my hand up and say that I was the first one at the 2025 cycle top in October to assume that we have hit the top. That we've hit a new paradigm, that this time it's different, that we're not going to have these any more blow off tops and then 1 year long bear markets 50, 60, 70% down. I was categorically wrong, right? This is the evidence that has been demonstrated over the last 9 months. Now, the 4 year cycle has remained intact at the top. This could be meant that the 4 year cycle remains intact at the bottom, which means that in October 10, which is 4 years removed from the bear market, we are starting a new 4 year cycle and in anticipation of two things: Clarity Act and the 2028 Bitcoin halving cycle. If everything remains true and constant, it could mean that we hit anywhere between 200 and 220K if the cycle repeats, but we add a diminishing return profile, because it's not going to repeat to perfection. We're not going to get the same multiples, just like we didn't get the same drawdowns in previous cycle. So two things: realized price and volatility and return compression assumes that we're at deeply discounted levels.
Excellent. When requesting a quote for an order to be executed through Stormrake, how long is that quote valid? Thanks so much. Okay, so how long the quote is valid for?
Depends on how much I like you, right? So usually we give our clients 2 to 3 minutes to accept a
Oh,
quote. We can usually hold it for a little bit longer, but we are very quick to refresh during volatile periods. So if the market price has been where it has been over the last few days, not a lot of intraday volatility, I can usually hold a price for a couple of minutes. When the markets are moving, you've got about 10 to 30 seconds to make a decision. And it's not me dictating what you can and can't do, it, how quickly you've got time to accept a quote. I'll literally let you know I can hold this for 10, 20 seconds depending on the volatility. If the markets have been quiet as it has been over the last few weeks, then I could probably hold it for a couple of minutes.
okay, excellent. I thought you have to report to ATO any transaction into the cold wallet. I don't understand the question, because you don't report it to the ATO. You have to obviously reflect it in the SMSF's financials, but there is nothing is getting reported to the ATO. So the auditor will have information about your cold wallet, such as the address, such as a cold wallet address, but no one can access your cold wallet. No one can access your account with Stormrake. It's only no one can access your SMSF bank account. So only trustees can access bank account, crypto account, wallet in SMSF. And this
Correct.
is what Bisha was saying. So basically, when your money is in an industry fund, you wake up tomorrow and Alba wakes up tomorrow and decides to do something because of the Greens or I don't know, blacks or whoever. And then, like, see you later, alligator, whatever he decides, he will execute potentially very quickly, like we saw with limited recourse borrowing arrangement in SMSFs. So it was banned literally from the 26th of June, and on 10th of August, it's done. So the same could happen with cryptocurrency or any other asset, to be honest, or superannuation accounts. So when you have SMSF, it will be very hard to execute it on the spot, right? Because you are in control. I'm not saying that, like you're not, you still have to be compliant and of course, like do whatever, like you supposed to do in SMSF. However, there is a sense of control, I guess, which we have because we decide where we invest our money, and we decide, I guess, like we decide who we give access to these funds, too. Does make sense?
Yeah, and on that
Again,
note, I just want to clarify that there is
yeah.
not a single piece of legislation or law or requirements that requires me as a digital asset broker with an AUSTRAC registration or a pending AFSL registration to immediately report your transaction history to the ATO directly. That doesn't exist. We have a reporting obligation to make and keep good records, and we have to make and keep those good records for at least 7 years, and we have to provide them to you and make them available to you even longer with self-managed super funds. But that information stays discreet between myself and you as the client to broker. Okay. Now, of course, we need to keep in mind that you need to continue to report your transactions. You need to make sure you pass your audit. But at least from my end, that's not where that information is going to. I present that information to you. It stays with you. You then meet your audit and compliance obligations independently.
Yeah, and you cannot use superannuation for personal enjoyment. This is the one of most important, the basic things. So you can only invest on this in the SMSF name, like to grow your future retirement. This is very important to understand. It's not your money. It is your future money, but not your money yet, but you do have a control over it. So I guess this is the best way I can explain how we deal with the ATO. Would 100,000 be enough to make a SMSF fund viable? To be honest, there is no minimum requirement. SMSF, in order to be established, SMSF has to have assets. Asset is $1 is an asset, so you can set up a SMSF with literally $1. But saying so, of course, you have to consider the fees, because there are fees involved, and it's SMSF establishment fees, annual compliance fees. So it's up to you to decide if you want to set up SMSF, knowing that there are fees involved. And the second thing, obviously, you have to consider the return as well. What return you are getting now versus what return potentially you can get in SMSF. And again, it's up to you to decide if you want to set up SMSF or not. But with 100,000, potentially, nothing stopping you to do so. All right. Can you access your SMSF at any time you wish to retire? No, this is one of the things. So, like I said, there are very strict rules where SMSF, when can you access your superannuation? And unfortunately, until you meet the certain conditions, you cannot access your superannuation. So one of the conditions, you have to be the age of 60. And then you have to retire at some stage before 60 or after 60. So that's very important to understand. There are a couple of other limited circumstances, like permanent, disability or terminal illness, when you can access your superannuation. Apart from this, or when you die, apart from that, your superannuation benefits cannot leave the superannuation system. The difference is your superannuation benefits can be either in the industry or retail fund and managed by someone, or it could be in your SMSF and managed by you, but you cannot access it. The rules are exactly the same. All right, I just replied 60. You have to be 60 and retire, or 65, you don't need to retire. So just think about 60 as a minimum age when you can access your super. What changes with regard to crypto audit compliance requirements in SMSFs when the SMSF is converted to account-based pension mode? Nothing changes apart from you're paying zero tax if you're under 2.1 million, and we still have to report exactly the same things. Plus, we start a pension for you, and the auditor will have to check it, but nothing changes from the compliance point of view. As long as you have SMSF, you have to keep reporting every year. If you leave the superannuation system, obviously, then you can take the money out instead of starting a pension, or when you start a pension, one of the options, you can take all your funds out and invest outside of super. But why would you do it if you're paying zero tax? I don't understand that. So most people keep actually their superannuation funds, especially SMSFs, until 80s or 90s. Obviously depends on the circumstances and how much super you have. Does SMSF crypto go in the cold wallet? And if not, where is it kept? Again, in terms of the SMSF and crypto, you can keep it in a cold wallet, or you can keep it with the broker. For example, you can keep it with Stormrake. That's perfectly fine. You don't have to move your coins from Stormrake to cold wallet. You don't. So Bisha can tell us about your actually security measures. I think it's a good topic as well.
It is important to highlight. I mean, it is, first of all, important to understand that your custody infrastructure can be different depending on which entity that you're holding in. You know, a family trust might have an independent multi-sig setup with like Casa or Nunchuck, which is a great, or, you know, great Bitcoin cold storage solution that you can be able to use. Number one, then you could, that's your family trust setup. Your personal account could be just single signature, independent cold storage, right? Fantastic idea. Number three, you might have a self-managed super fund account, and in which case you hold it with us. If you do hold it with us, everything for us is independently audited, independently verified. Further to that, multi-signature, geo-dispersed cold storage with assets not held on premises. And we, with the AFSL now coming into play, which I'm extremely excited about, it's going to require us to hold public indemnity insurance and asset insurance, right? This is, I've been wanting this for a long time, but I, as Bishop Gadera, broker at Stormrake, goes to an insurer, an indemnity insurer, an asset insurer, they don't want to touch me, right? Because we don't have licensing, we're not, you know, it was unregulated gray area, and not a lot of insurers are willing to put their name to that. That now changes, right? And so we're just, you know, it's essentially you get to deal with a custodian who is qualified, who is insured, has independent audit reports and controls, and therefore there are people who are willing to provide attestations, whether that be quarterly or every financial year, that every funds that we hold are held one for one, which is something that we've attested to for a very long time. And we've also got the added benefit of our assets being on chain. What does that mean? Every one of our self-managed super fund clients get their own public wallet address that independently verifies their holdings, regardless of balance. So you can verify your public wallet address on chain. So Natalia buys 1.2 Bitcoin from Bishop. I put it into her SMSF account at Stormrake, and that wallet address verifies the holdings. And what is also really effective at doing is showing the funds movement in and out. So I can't just, you know, dabble in Natalia's wallet, take 1.2 Bitcoin out, and then at the end of the financial year, put 1.2 Bitcoin in and say, well, it's all there, right? It shows the movements in and out, right? And so that's the added benefit that we provide. Now, whether you choose to use us or not, we don't mind. As long as you've got the proper control measures, you've got the proper audit process, and you've got the proper recovery processes for all of your self storage and all of your self custody, then it's a great tool to have. But it's certainly by no means a requirement, particularly self-managed super fund. You're thinking about, you know, 30, 40 years down the track.
Excellent. Okay, Natalia, in one of your seminars, you mentioned that SMSF should be in a company. Okay, it's not SMSF should be in a company. It's that SMSF has a company trustee for SMSF. So because SMSF is a trust, so you can have either individual trustees or a company trustee. We prefer a company trustee. We set up with the company because there is a better asset protection, because it's protected by this company shell. Say, for example, your bank account under the ABC Pty Ltd is trustee for ABC Superannuation Fund. Your Stormrake account, you know, under this name. So everything is under this name. If you go bankrupt, for example, the creditors, there is a clear distinction between your assets and SMSF assets from bankruptcy point of view and from the audit point of view as well, because when you have two individual trustees, say, for example, it's a joint name on the account, so who is the owner? Is it SMSF or is the owner? Or two individual trustees are the owners. So this is just very clear from administration point of view, creditors bankruptcy point of view, and asset protection. So That's the only reason why we set up. Actually, most industry experts set up SMSFs with a company trustee for SMSF. If every sale trade within SMSF treated as a taxable event, with the tax payable within the taxable year, every year SMSF has to calculate how much tax they have to pay to the ATO, because whatever events happen during a year, you made the profit, you put contributions in. Remember the employee contributions, they attract 15% tax. So you have to pay this, SMSF has to pay this tax to the tax office after we prepare and lodge tax return for your SMSF. So you have to have a cash liquidity to be able to meet these tax obligations. Once you are in retirement and can access your SMSF, can you get a loan and leverage against it? It's not about being in retirement. It's just SMSFs are not allowed to borrow, but apart from limited recourse borrowing arrangement. But the interesting part of it is that there is actually no prohibition of leveraging against cryptocurrency, but it has to meet, the loan has to meet the certain requirements, which is limited recourse borrowing arrangement requirements. And I doubt that there is a lender in Australia, at least I haven't seen ever limited recourse borrowing arrangement in SMSF. In theory, potentially, it could be possible, but in reality, no. So I would say no, to be honest, borrowing against crypto, unless, again, it's a limit, it's special borrowing. And to meet the special requirements, it's very, very, very hard. I haven't seen it yet. What is the fine or penalty if the SMSF documentation is audited and found non-compliant? Every breach, the fine is almost 20,000. It's 19,000 something. So for every breach. So if you've done it a few times during a year, so potentially 20 grand, roughly multiply by how many times you've done it. But we work with the ATO. We try not to, we basically work with the ATO to make sure that if someone comes with the issues, to make sure they're not getting all these penalties imposed on them. And usually, if you work with the ATO, it is possible to resolve it, that SMSF is not going to pay all these penalties. But if you don't work with ATO, then obviously the result could be different. Is Easy Super an AFSL? Okay, so this is actually connected to two other questions people ask. If someone can do the plan or investment strategy for the SMSF, I have to explain you guys one thing. First of all, Easy Super doesn't have AFSL. I was an authorized representative with a limited license last year, which I gave up in October. Because having a license, I had to set up SMSFs with a statement of advice, which was costly for the trustees, lengthy from my perspective, and basically didn't make any commercial sense. So we changed it. I gave up the license. Now we set up SMSF. It's called execution only. So you come to me and say, Natalia, I want to set up SMSF, and I do it for you because you asked me to do it, execution only. However, SMSF Power Masterclass, this is where I explain you all the rules, but after you set up SMSF. So when I used to provide statement of advice, I used to do it. I used to explain all the rules before I was setting up SMSF. So now I explain it after, but I don't include in this session I don't consider your particular circumstances, objectives, and needs. And this is a difference when you have AFSL. The advisor, they will consider your particular circumstances and prepare advice tailored for your circumstances. However, I have to explain about cryptocurrency, that cryptocurrency is not a financial product, and there are not a lot of advisors in this country who have cryptocurrency on their licensee approved list, because every advisor can only talk about the list which is approved by their licensee. Cryptocurrency is not a financial product. Most of advisors, 99.9, probably 9%, don't have cryptocurrency on their list. So if you want advice on cryptocurrency, you cannot go to financial advisor in the most cases. Also, you have to understand that there is no in Australia, you will not find one person who you can go to and say, okay, can you give me advice on all assets, on every asset class, on cryptocurrency, shares, managed funds, property, gold, silver, private credit. Just give me advice on how do I structure my portfolio. Unfortunately, there is, because if a people license, like on the AFSL, they have, like I said, approved list. They cannot go outside of this approved list. If people not licensed, say for example, some is like wealth coach, that's wonderful, but they cannot provide advice on shares, managed funds, or assets which actually require the license. So you have this thing, you have the situation where you have to go to the different actually people to get advice on the different things, unfortunately. And like I said, we provide education, but if you need a specific person for specific guidance, coaching, or advice, again, I will refer you to different people. That's the bottom line. All right. So when you decide to sell your crypto, how is it transferred from Stormrake to customer? Okay, via exchange.
So I'm assuming you're referring to, and I'm happy to be wrong, but my assumption is that you want to sell down personal holdings or holdings that you have in your trust. How is that actual, process occurring? So when you decide to sell with us, and you might be preparing to fund your own self-managed super fund with a capital injection, a cash injection. So if that's not the case, please correct me if I'm wrong. But let's say you've got personal holdings, you want to roll them into your super. You can't just transfer the Bitcoin in. You sell it, every kind of disposal is required, and then you transfer the funds that we would send back to you. So let's say you sold one Bitcoin, $95,000, that goes back to your bank account. You then transfer from your personal bank account into your self-managed super fund bank account. You then fund back your SMSF with us. There's a different account number that you'd be funding it towards, and then you're good to go. And then you fund it, we buy back the Bitcoin less the fees, and then you're done. That's how you can go from personal Bitcoin to self-managed super fund Bitcoin in a compliant way. Natalia, correct me if I'm wrong. If you're wanting to say when you decide to sell your crypto, how's it transferred from Stormrake to customer via exchange, you just give me your BSB and account number. So let's say you're not even trying to fund your SMSF account, you just want to hold it back in your bank account. You sell one Bitcoin, we've got $95,000. We put that transferred back to your account via a BSB account number transfer. Done. That's it. That's the end of the exchange.
Yeah, I think also they, I think this is also a question about the name. So when you open an account with Stormrake, it will have SMSF name on it. So this is the thing. So you don't need the exchange.
Correct.
You don't need the exchange. You don't need the cold wallet. You can just deal with Stormrake and buy, sell, swap, and keep your coins with Stormrake. That's the beauty of it.
Correct.
All right. So can we really determine the cycle repeating itself due to world events being so unpredictable? Okay, Bisha, that's a hard one.
Well, I said that at the top, my dear friend. So I don't know who asked that question. It's a good question. I said, well, market is different now. Cycle is different, more mature. We've got ETFs. We've got institutional capital. We've got institutional pipelines. This time is different. We can't be so sure that the 4-year cycle will repeat itself. That was my famous last words 9 months ago. I was wrong. To assume that the cycle was correct back then would have been much better in my own interest, to be honest with you, but I didn't make that assumption. There's this famous quote, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. So I got it wrong at the top. I'm not going to get it wrong at the bottom. So can we assume that the cycle is true? Well, up until now, everything has shown us that the 4-year cycle is intact. For those who don't know, 1 year down, 3 years up, 365-day bear market, 1,065-day bull run. This has been true since 2014. For it to be broken, it means that either one of two things need to happen. A bull market extends itself longer than 1,065 days, and a bear market extends itself for longer than, say, 400 days, which has been the average over the last little while. So for us, until we get proven wrong and the data is different, then we're not going to be saying it's different. It is still true until it's different.
Okay. Time will tell. So, do you have to report the cold wallet address? No, we don't have to report the cold wallet address, but we need to keep it on file, and the auditor will check the coins in the cold wallet address. They will go online and check it, but they don't report it to the ATO. Can the annual compliance fees be paid out of your super fund? They are paid out of a super fund. So everything is paid out from your super fund apart from the establishment fees. You pay it upfront, but then you can reimburse yourself after the SMSF is established. So you will get your money back, from your SMSF, but you will get your money back from cash flow perspective. Is it possible to have some super in SMSF and in the industry? Absolutely. You can have 2, 3, 4, 5 superannuation funds. You can have few SMSFs if you wish. It's just a matter of if it makes financial sense. That's it. But yes, you can.
Yeah, I've got a couple of my clients that has a self-managed super fund, one for them and one for their wife, so that there's no questions around what happens with my assets in the unfortunate closure of a relationship. All those assets are already clearly separated in establishment. So, there's ways you can protect yourself in that sense as well.
Bisha, you know what? I have to disappoint your clients because in case of separation, under the Family Law Act, all the assets will go to one family pool and will be split according to the family law. So,
that's a shame.
Sorry to disappoint your clients, but the separate SMSFs mean nothing.
Okay, well, that's good for me to tell them as well. Then that'd be great to let them know. But they thought they had found a loophole in the system.
No. There is no loophole, unfortunately, because otherwise everyone would be like, okay, I have a separate, SMSF. It's not your money. No, it's our money, darling. Honey,
no!
it's our money, honey.
Oh my goodness, I'm feeling the walls closing in, Natalia. That's not good.
I know. This is why you run into US. So, but it's still our money, honey. So that's it. So it doesn't matter where you live, it's still our money. Oh, that's funny. It's a joke, guys. I hope you get our jokes. So, Natalia, are you saying that if I'm 69 but not yet retired, I won't be able to access my SMSF? Sorry, after 65, you actually can access it at any time. You don't need to retire. This is the thing. Between 60 and 65, you do have to retire. After 65, you can access it at any time, pay zero tax, and basically enjoy this zero tax environment and only take money when you need it. Because why would you take money from somewhere where you're not paying tax and money is working for you? All right. So do you see SMSF as a growth industry for employment purposes? Is Easy Super looking to expand and hire more staff? Yeah, we are expanding and hiring, not at the moment, but yes, in general, we are growing, that's for sure. Is my SMSF held in the account in my SMSF name or in the broker's name? Of course, it's in your SMSF's name. Yeah. So when we get a statement from Bishop for our clients, there is a clear name on the account, which is SMSF's name. So it's a proof of ownership. How much are how much are your storage fees, Bishop?
As a very low 0.5% per annum. So 0.5% per annum for assets held under our custody, for digital assets only, not for fiat assets.
Okay, all right, very good. And again, it's payable from the SMSF. So, and it's tax deductible as well.
Yep, and it can be paid in kind, which is a reduction on the balance of the Bitcoin that you hold with us, or in AUD, up to you.
Yeah, okay. How do the fees get taken out? Does the BTC get sold to fund it? I guess
we just spoke about that. Yeah, just literally either in AUD, if you've got spare AUD to pay for the fees, you can, or you can be through the Bitcoin reduction itself. So one Bitcoin becomes, 0.995 of a Bitcoin to be in order to fund it.
Okay. How can the auditor check online the cold wallet? What's on it? Again, we get the public address and the auditor gets the public address, and they go and check it online. There are other tools available to check the cold wallets. We also ask you for the screenshots. I know, nowadays with AI, whatever, everyone can create a screenshot, but nevertheless, it's still we're still practicing the screenshots of your cold wallet and what's in it with the current date. And this is what the auditor checks. There are a few other things the auditor can ask for, but this is, I guess it depends on the particular circumstances, how much you have in your SMSF, because there is a difference if someone has 10,000 in Bitcoin or someone has 10 million in Bitcoin. So the checks will be different. Does Stormrake charge annual fees to store crypto? Yeah, we already answered that. Is it possible to swing trade, for example, between Bitcoin and gold in SMSF? Stormrake. Oh yeah, this is a good one. Can they swing between Bitcoin and gold using
Yeah,
Stormrake?
you can. If you want to go risk on, you can be Bitcoin. If you want to go risk off, you can go gold. All the transactions will be accounted for and reporting for. And it's great because, if you've got this really nice environment where you can capture a low tax environment to retain those gains in, then it's good for it. But I'll refer back to my earlier statement, which is in most cases, when you do swing trade, if you do end up over trading, the only person that wins in that relationship is myself as your broker collecting fees. So you can absolutely swing trade, especially if you want to say, look, I don't want to just be exposed to all of this massive risk and volatility because I'm expecting prices to go down. You can go to USDT, you can go to AUD, you can go to Pax Gold. You can definitely do that, no problems. It just comes down to the fact of, is it in line with your investment strategy? If it is, then go for it.
Excellent. Yeah. And would it get taxed because you have sold? Yeah, it gets taxed. Doesn't matter if you sell it in SMSF in a personal name. The question is how much tax you pay. This is the only question. But yeah, definitely, selling is a taxable event. If I am going through a separation and I need to contribute to my ex-partner Super, can I do that through SMSF? Potentially you can. Again, it depends on your binding financial agreement and what you agreed upon with your ex-partner, but potentially, yes, you can use SMSF and superannuation. Again, depends on what you agree on. All right, that's it. I think we don't have any questions. That was fantastic. Oh my God, so many questions. We have like 50 or something odd
Beautiful.
questions. It was wonderful. So thank you, everyone. It was amazing. So we will post it on YouTube and you can rewatch it again, rewatch the, episodes you really liked, or share it with your friends and relatives and whoever would benefit from this information. And if you have any questions, you can always contact us, Easy Super. You can contact Stormrake, book a session with myself or book time with Bisha, and basically take control over your superannuation, over your future, over your retirement.
I love it.
Thank you,
Thank you.
everyone. Thank you, Bisha.
Thank you so
Thank you
much for your
so
time,
much. It was
Natalia.
very informative webinar. So see you next time.